Thought we'd just grab a few shots underneath real quick. It's pretty clean for a northern car in Indiana. A little bit of surface rust on some things. Overall, not bad. Let's take a look back at the back. Yeah, a few things are just a little crusty, but not bad. We'll need to get in here and do a little oiling and maybe some whatever that crap is, coating everybody's on now. That's a 7 1/4 inch rear end. It's got a new brake line put on it. I can see, you can't see from here, but it has. I'm wondering if that's the original muffler, because it has that interesting little crimp in it over on each end of it, up there, and it's got it up there too. So I'm curious about that, but other than that, it's pretty clean in here. My information is that Chrysler used a whole lot of galvanized metal on these cars because they learned their lesson, I guess, from what happened with the Valaris and the Aspens that just rusted so bad. So it looks like possibly the original tailpipe too. Yeah, we'll get on this and get that kind of treated. Pour 15, that's what I was trying to think of. All right. Well, this is one of these tools that I only use once in a great while, and it's only used for one thing specifically. And that is on these tilt steering columns, you have these little pivot pins, and they've got threads in them, and you take this little tool and just sort of, I have to back it out some if I remove one of them, which I have. And, anyway, hang on a second. So anyway, you take this guy and you just thread it into this like so, snugly, and then you kind of orient this little, whatchamacallit there, that's a little, I guess you could call that a blocker or something, standoff, anyway. So, and then what you're going to do is you're going to hold this stationary, this end that's screwed into the pin, you're going to hold this stationary, and then you're going to take your 1/2 inch wrench and you're going to cramp down on this thing. And when you do that, it pulls the pin out like so. And this is what it is. It's just a pivot pin, and it's an interference fit. So that's what you do with that. We are almost to it. I've had to disassemble this thing about as far as you can. Of course GM had to do something like that. Of course. Alright. Okay, we're in finally. And there those bastards are right there. You got 4 of them. One there, one there, one down on the bottom, down somewhere down there, but he's down there. Let's see if I can get you a viewpoint. There's one of them over here, and trust me, there's a 4th. He's hiding right in there. See him down, way down in the right corner. So anyway, as you can see, that's the source of, don't mind the column shaft moving. See those bolts, how loose they are? It's the source of all our misery. So we got to take each one of those out, Loctite the crap out of it, put it back in, torque it down, and put this jigsaw puzzle back together. Well, would you like to see an extreme good example of lack of previous owner talent? So I had to replace a wiper bush in this car here, and these are You can't really see it, but there's a motor back in there, and rod comes over and runs on the end right over there. Well, that was the only one that appeared to be broken. So the problem is, when I put the thing together, which I wouldn't wish on anybody, I hate these things, I turned the wipers on, they went down. So somebody had the wipers off, wiper arms off, put the wiper arms back on, and didn't put them in the right spot. So now I have to rotate the motor around to get them to go back up again, and take them off, run the motor till it parks, put the wiper blades back on. One more thing I got going on with this car I discovered is it's got a little water leak inside, and Mopars seem to be known for this kind of stuff going on. This one leaks a little bit right down, comes right down and lands right about right there on this mat. So you can see there's a little bit of moisture underneath it, so let that dry out anyway. Carpet's a little damp right there. So these don't have the same exact problems as the A bodies have. These are a variation of an F body, which was later designed, and they went to, one thing they did that's good is they went to a wiper system that's totally out under here. So it's in the cowl, so there's no wiper arms passing through the firewall, because those were known to leak. They had little foam seals underneath the wiper pivots, and then when they came through the cowl, they had little foam seals, so I had to put those on one of my cars. I made a little video of it. It's not fun either to do, but what these do is they either rust out, which I hope this one hasn't. It doesn't look like it has, but even though it does have a little bit of surface rust starting up that I'm going to need to correct soon. Most of that's just dirt though. But what these have going on is they have these vents. They're not vents, they're actually, that's the wrong term for them, they're drains for the cowl. And there's one on each end like that. Supposedly they let the water drain okay, but these are low points right here. But there's one on this end, there's one over on that end, and there's a hidden one down that's under right there, right below the, sort of below the wiper motor. You can see it there, that's the flat for it, and that's the lowest spot. It's lower than the other two, so whatever kind of crud's in here gets to accumulate over that thing, and this one was no exception. It had all kinds of junk. It was just totally plugged, so it wasn't draining. So if it rains enough, then theoretically it could probably back up, you know, if there's a spot back up in there that's got a little bit of a void in it, like where it's supposed to be sealed. I saw some body sealer in there, you know, the old stuff they used, and it could probably drain into the interior if it had a spot to go. So we'll monitor that and see if it's going to continue. Hopefully that will cure it, because I sucked all that dirt and junk out with my trusty shop vac. Alright, it's getting kind of dark, and I'm just going to finish up by cleaning up that cowl there. As you can see, I power washed the engine bay, but not the engine. That's just to aggravate Uncle Phil and whoever else. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go ahead and clean it up a little bit and call it a good evening. So, got the wipers working, and oh yeah, you figure this thing needs heater hoses. This appears to be, since this says Mopar and a Mopar part number on this heater hose, I would assume it's the original. So 30-year-old heater hoses, they definitely got to go. Alright, well, let's do some more. Well, we got 2 headlights in, and we got 2 left to go. You see those 2 over there are blackened and droopy. They got water in them. So here in just a few minutes, we'll get those out and we'll add those to the junk pile over here. And you can see the other junk pile over here of parts that are no longer any good is these adjuster little doodads there. They're made out of plastic, and I correctly predicted that when I even touched the ones that were still holding that they would disintegrate, and they did, because not only are they weak, but the screws are kind of stuck in there. So you can see here's one here. Camera out. I just touched this and a piece of it just, look at that. So junk. That ain't such a big deal, but that is right there, because those are the, see, those things just fell out. Not these parts, but there's two little, well, let me just show you what one looks like new. That's what it's supposed to look like. It's got those little smaller little protrusions there at the back side, and they go through the header panel and hold this whole shebang together. So they're done. Those old ones are done. So headlights are working fine. I've tested, at least this side is, I've tested them and they both work. So somebody just got lazy or got old or didn't care or something, so when the headlights started burning out, they didn't care. Just don't drive at night. It's kind of funny. People will do stuff like that, but I've done it. I've done it with this Fusion over here. I kept having that, well, it's around the house now, but when I was driving there, I kept having problems with the headlights, and this last time, you know, after it got tore up, one of the low beams went out again, and I just replaced it, like, you know, not that long ago. And I said, to hell with it. I'm not going to put another headlight bulb in there. I'm not even going to mess with it. So I just ran them. Well, first thing I did, if I had to drive at night, I just drove my pickup. Otherwise, if I had to turn the headlights on during a rainstorm or something, I just put them on high. Highs worked. So I guess that's what they did here. Well, and another thing too, without getting into a sermon on the mount about this, but not only were 3 headlights, at least partially or totally non-functional, there was only one bulb, the one that was over here, that low beam, that actually worked on low and high. And then that high beam was burned out, and that one on the end worked on low but not on high. And with the steering column being loose in there, which I've now fixed, the way those are set up is there's a rod that goes down to the dimmer switch, which is at the bottom, about halfway down the steering column. So, had a little spider crawling on my hand there. So anyway, that rod, whenever that column got all loosey-goosey and moved around, it popped the rod out of that dimmer switch, so they could no longer dim the headlights. So anyway, a lot of drama going on with these headlights. It's 4 doggone headlights and all that going on just to get them to work again. That's crazy, isn't it? There we go, working headlights. Doing a little bit of work on this instrument cluster. This is the auxiliary cluster that goes to the left. It's got the 2 gauges there. So you're looking at it upside down. One's battery and one's temperature. And it's got warning lights under them. And when I looked at the oil pressure light, I'd always notice that. You see there's something obscuring it. So it's right behind the oil pressure symbol. It's supposed to look like that one on the left, but that one doesn't look right. So I suspected what was wrong was what's actually wrong, and that is another case of when the responsible workers there at the Chrysler plant, Dodge, Maine, wherever this thing was built, put this instrument cluster together. They just sloppily installed the foam here that seals the light from going in the wrong directions. You know, keeps it segregated, I guess. It's supposed to be like that. Notice also it's 2 different kinds of foam. But they installed this thing off, so they just put it in there like it was and called it a day. So I'm going to try to carefully peel that off and reposition it. But I've seen that several times before, so whoever was responsible for quality control in these instrument clusters up there when they built these cars, even back through the 70s when they did the Dusters and the Darts. They didn't do a very good job of it. Very nice. Alright, done. Well, this may explain why I keep smelling gas fumes a little bit here and there. This is a piece of rubber line. Started out as rubber. I don't know exactly what it is now, but it started out as rubber, and it goes between the end of that line there, which comes from the carburetor bowl vent, down to the charcoal canister, right down, kind of way down in there. There's a port on that thing, so I kept getting just a little bit of a whiff of gasoline, or as our Retro Chad always said, a gasoline-like odor. So this probably would be the cause of that. So I'll go into my vacuum line source and cut up another piece and replace it. Hey guys, well, it's a beautiful day today, but it's kind of windy and it's really cooled off. The high today was in the 60s, and low last night was about 47, and tonight it's going to be even cooler, down to about 41 or 2. So fall's definitely here, and so pretty soon we're going to have to retreat into the garage to do any amount of wrenching. So I'm proceeding onward with this Fury out here, and so what I'm doing is I have crossed off everything on my list as far as the interior stuff that I did. Let's go out here and we'll sit down in the car and we'll talk about it. That beep you heard my phone doing, I've been giving away some magazines for free on Craigslist. And you believe I've even had people tell me they ask me about them and say they're coming, and they do the same crap they do when you're trying to sell something. All at the last minute, oh well, had to take somebody to the ER. Had to do this, had to do this. Can you leave them out someplace for me? But no, because when I give something away on Craigslist, it's all I can do to summon the motivation to answer a text message or send a text message. I'm not doing anything else. No, they're sitting there by the door. You come here, you go there, get them, pick them up, put them in your vehicle, and you leave. That's all I'm doing. So anyway, let's look through this punch list real quick. Repair the tilt column. I've done that. It's all good to go, nice and tight. And that was not a fun job, but now everything works good. The high and low beam selector works again. That thing's got a rod on it that goes down to the switch, just like a GM switch. Sounds just like one too. And it had popped out because of that thing moving around. So hint is, if you have one of these columns in one of these, or you're like in a General Motors product, don't use the steering wheel to pull yourself in and out, especially if you're a big person. Repair the broken vacuum lines to the HVAC. Okay, I did that also. I'm going to make a separate video about that. I've done the video. I'm just going to put it separately because there's a lot of people, I think, looking for that repair procedure. So it's working. Everything's fine there. Replaced the HVAC bulb. I did. It's just one of those regular old wedge-based bulbs. One of them works fine now. Replaced the broken headlight adjusters. I did that. I put all 8 adjusters on this, and well, I had forgot to talk about my headlights, but I also, I replaced bulbs. I did that. Replaced all 4 headlights. I had, you see in another segment, I was just talking about my headlights. I had a bunch of them not working right, so did that. Repair the wiper linkage. I did that also. Replace the wipers. I've done that. Bulbs, we just talked about that. And I guess anything else in here that was worth talking about. This mirror, there was one in here. Somebody had re-glued the mirror back to the windshield, and it was on there, but then I went to adjust the mirror and the thing just lifted right off. So I got looking at it and it was the wrong rear view mirror. So I just left it up there. I didn't like that. I don't like loose mirrors of any type. So I thought, well, when I find another mirror, I'll just go ahead and pick it up from the junkyard. Well, I happened to be in the trunk back there working, doing something, and I was digging all the spare hubcaps and stuff out, and down in the corner, the side pocket, I guess you could call it, on the right side, and I saw something down in there, and I picked it up, and it was this mirror, all dirty and everything, and so I test fit it, and well, the problem with the other one was it's got a screw up here in the bottom, which tightens the thing up, and the other one would never tighten down. I mean, you could run it in as far as it go, and it's just still so it was not the right mirror. So anyway, what I did was, I thought, okay, I'll just stick this one on there and tighten it down and see if it actually fits. Maybe this is the mirror that's supposed to go on here. Well, guess what? It's the mirror that's supposed to go on here, because now it's fine, everything's good. So it's not in perfect condition. It's got a little bit of stuff going on with the backing. Good old American made mirror there, I guess. But I'll look for another better one as I go along. So the radio is working. The numbers on it do something kind of funny. When you tune it up the scale, it leaves like one of the numbers off over here. Like if I tuned it to 92.7 or something like that, it'll say like 92 point, and then there's no 7 on it. And then you go to the next one up, and it's full. And then you go to the next one, and then if it's like 94.5, it'll say 194.5. 194.5. So it just repeats that sequence of doing that all the way up, but it works okay. So I don't know what's wrong with it. Took the gauges out over here and reworked those a little bit, and just painted the needles and fixed that phone that was in the wrong place down there. You saw that. And also I took the glove box out because it was rusty. I don't know if this car had a windshield leak at one point, or it might still have a windshield leak, but it was a little bit rusty along that edge right there, and the glove box had just some debris in it, just dirty, and needed to be cleaned up. So that whole thing just comes out. You take the 3 nuts, yeah, the one nut behind the steering wheel here, the 3 screws along the bottom and the 3 screws along the top up here facing the other way. Just take those all out, and this thing just comes out, and then that light back there's got a connector and a harness, and you can lift the whole deal out. Don't try to take the door off, because you can't get that strap to come off. So I just sanded it down with a wire wheel and painted it again, so it looks pretty good. It got really some heavy corrosion on it, so it's got some pitting, but it'll be okay. Tightened down both these front door handles, for whatever reason, were loose. We got one bolt holding them in, that little chrome handle. So I just put the socket on it and tightened them down, and they're nice and tight now. I'm still missing a knob there for that. I don't know how somebody got that to come off, but they did. And still need to, at some point, re-dye these, some of these plastics in here. You see there's some kind of faded, turning pink. The dash still looks nice, but the rest of it, over here especially, is kind of looking kind of shabby. So we'll deal with that. And I'm going to monitor for a water leak. I cleaned out that cowl up there, so maybe that's got it cured. So what we've got left is we're just basically going to have to dig into the mechanics of this thing. Alternator belts and hoses, that's what I'm starting on now. I'm letting the coolant drain out now. Change oil filter. Air filter's okay. We're going to change the oil filter, of course. Replace the shocks. This is going to be on a while, a little bit later on. Replace the noisy wheel bearing. That needs to be done soon. And turn the rotors. I'll do that when I'm dealing with the wheel bearings. So that's where we're at on this thing. And so this is just going to be a matter of putting it on the road and seeing how she does. I've put the truck on the road now, and I'm going to do where's that? I'm going to do a little video after, if I make it a week with that thing, with it still running, I'll do a little video about my impressions of it. So far, though, 1 day driving, okay. For what it is, it's fine for what I paid for it. So, all right, guys. So I'm going to tie back into this deal under the hood here and work on that now. So I'll just add this to the series, and we'll pick back up on what we're doing out there coming right up. Well, you know what? There are birds about 2 feet away from me in that big bush right here. They roost here at night, and so they're just kind of hanging out over there, so hopefully we can cohabitate a little bit together while I'm doing this video. I wanted to show you what's possibly the worst thermostat housing I've ever seen. Look at this. Now this is off this 318 that's in that Fury, the 87 that I've been doing the work on, and this is the later version that's just a piece of sheet metal. It's not the cast iron version like the early ones, like the one I showed you on another video a little bit ago. But what's caused this is that the hose that was on here, which is right over here, looks about just as bad. Now I put the split in because I had to cut out, but to get it off there. But see all this rust and stuff, and especially look at that. Have you ever seen a hose that flared out like that? That thing was jammed down over the thermostat housing, I guess, and you know, sort of however it was on down on there, and good grief. So it was probably starting to leak a little bit, and it just kind of corroded things. But I was worried I wasn't gonna get these bolts out, because the bolts were all kind of crusted up and all that kind of stuff. But they came out okay. They weren't tight in there, so that worked out okay. And this looks to be an original Mopar thermostat in here. If we can get a close-up maybe. It's got a Pentastar on it with a number there beside it. And so this is I can see there what it had in it. It was a 195. It says 0195, but right there. So that was what was in it. That chipmunk just ran past me here. I got a regular nature preserve going. So anyway, this thing was still working and it wasn't stuck. It kind of feels a little stiff in there, but like it's kind of getting sticky. But it was time to replace all this, because I had I think this one was an original Mopar hose. I think I saw that on it somewhere. Yeah. This was the upper hose. That's the original Mopar hose that was on it, probably. That's the part number, 4140710. I can't guarantee that that's not been a replacement. It might be, because that could be the date code 42095, but even if it is, it's 22 years old. So that was bad. And then the lower hose was getting there. It was swole up too, and I think it was an original hose, but I'm not convinced of that because I don't see any markings on it. But it's got a spring in it, so I'm going to take that spring out, see if I can weasel it into the other one I'm going to put on there, because I think nowadays they don't come with a spring in them. And here is another original, looks like an original Mopar hose. It says heater 5/8 inch on this side, but you turn it over and it says Mopar 3849507. Now that number, that 301141, I don't know what that is, because it's not got enough numbers for a part number. Mopar part numbers are usually, at least in this era, they're always 7 digits. So that's the part number for the hose, and then that, I don't know what that's, it means something, but I bet that's the date code, because this car was made on up into the latter part of 86. It's an 87 car, so that would be, if that's in line with Mopar's usual date coding procedures, that's the 287th day of 86. So that thing has been on there since new, and it wasn't looking too good. It was kind of stiff and swelling up at the ends and stuff, and these cuts, like I said, these cuts are ones that I had to make. I just don't try to pull hoses off when they're this old. Heck with it. And this is another one I took off, and what's interesting is this thing is had two different kinds of hoses on it. And that says heater 5/8 inch, but that's so funny. That chipmunk back here, he's got his nest right here is where it is, his burrow. And so I'm kind of keeping him out of his burrow. But that's okay. He'll get over it. Anyway, this says also Mopar on it. In at least a couple different places, so that was probably one of the originals, but it's ribbed. And you know, you can buy this replacement type ribbed hose, but it's expensive. So there's that one. And then there's this time bomb, as I call it right here. Not Paul Feinbaum, but time bomb that I've also cut off. And this is the bypass hose, the infamous bypass hose, which this one, I don't see any markings on it that are legible, but it's really, as I like to say, it ain't looking too good. So plus that, the clamps are starting to rust. So yeah, when you see them start doing this stuff, and the thing about it is if you look down and run your finger down in this thing, then the inside of the hose has also got a spot in here that's kind of where this bulge is. You can feel a distinct depression in there. So it's just eating out, it's bulging out, and it's not, you know, it's just getting weak right there. And, you know, they may go another 5 years and not give a problem, and then they may, a week from now, they may go boom. So okay, I've got all the stuff to replace this, and that was the worst of it, getting that thermostat housing off. I'm going to clean that thing up and see if I hope it's usable. We'll see. If not, I'll have to go get another one. I guess I could probably use that good cast iron one I got back there, but it's kind of almost seemed like something changed between those. I don't know if the bolt pattern might have changed or the thermostat size could have, but I may be imagining that. But anyway, guys, I'm going to proceed onward, so I'll see you in the next clip. As I said, I'll see you in the next clip. Right then, so I figured out a way to fix this crusty old thermostat housing. Yeah, you know, the inside of it doesn't look too bad, but the outside of it is pretty rough. So it's lost some material off of it. Ain't looking too good. So I decided to fix it by buying a new one. So I'll set you down a second. I'll tear the wrapper off this package. Yeah. Okay then, there we go. Simple as that. And I was correct about this. I told you in another clip that I thought that even though I had an older style aluminum, as it turns out it's not iron. I misspoke on that. This is let me get this one for you. This is an aluminum water neck for a 318, but this is for an older style 318 manifold, I guess, because I was suspicious that the bolt pattern was a little bit different, and that's correct. It is. We compare those, you can see they definitely will not interchange. Not at all. So I don't know why they did that, but that's the deal. So can't use that one anyway. So anyway, I've been reading through the comments about this. A lot of you said stuff about this Amazon deal and Amazon Prime, and it's cheaper that way and all that. And I think you're probably right in some instances, but I'm not sure I'm fully on board with that yet, because I did some price comparison when I made this order out. This came from Rock Auto, and I had let's see, I think this was a $26 order, because I had two belts that I ordered and then this thing, and so I think my shipping was like $6 and something, total. Hang on.
I like that Dodge.
Oh yeah?
That's pretty nice.
Thank you. Yeah. Just looked up on it.
How much you got it for?
1400.
Not a good deal.
Yeah, it is.
You
Nobody.
mind if I look at it?
No, go ahead. Nobody wanted it.
Body looks pretty good on this.
That was Tony the Phantom Body Guy, the return. Okay, anyway, sorry for the interruption, guys. Somebody stepped by there. Yeah, so this thing is relieved of duty. And what I was saying was about the shipping and all that. And I know several of you were talking about that. And you said, well, it's cheaper on Amazon Prime. But the thing about Amazon Prime is that you have to pay for that. That's like $11 a month. And I compared prices on these things, and Amazon had this one for this exact thing. This is a Dorman part. It's like 903 something. Is it on here? Yeah, there it is. 902-3011. And they had it for $10.10, I think, with free 2-day shipping with Amazon Prime. Well, this one was like, I don't have this in front of me. This thing was either $2.61 or $3.61, or in that area, on Rock Auto, and shipping was what, $2-3 for this one. So, you know, it basically came out a wash right there, I guess. But anyway, not gonna worry about that right now. I'm just got to get this thing together. So, this thing got. Well, we're to the exciting part of putting coolant hoses back on this car, and I've just run into something a little bit interesting I thought I would mention. This is the new low radiator hose. This goes on sort of like this. This end is off the water pump, and this is the radiator end. This is on a 318 M-body Mopar, and this old hose, which I had to cut apart with a hacksaw, had what's called an anti-collapse spring in it, and by all intents and looks of it, that's probably the original hose on the bottom. So Mopar specified one. So this hose that I've got, this is a new Gates replacement hose, and it does not have one of those. No spring whatsoever in it, and I don't remember when I've seen a low radiator hose come with a spring in it these days. Used to be pretty common. So there's a lively debate going on the internet. If you ever ask about, do you need an anti-collapse spring in a low radiator hose? Some people have to. It's like any question you ever ask about stuff like that, or carburetors, or oil additives, or anything. Probably 40% say yes, 40% say no, and the other 20% don't know. So anyway, be that as it may, I'm going to put this one back in, because the theory behind this, if you wonder why that was in there, is that under certain conditions, the water pump, which the water pump draws coolant off the bottom of the radiator and then back into the water pump and circulates it to cool the engine. But the theory was, or the fear was, that this, under certain conditions, this water pump could collapse this hose if there was no reinforcement in it like that. And this hose doesn't feel the strongest. I'm sure it's a good hose, but this one, I don't know what this thing was made out of, but it didn't even want to cut apart. It wasn't, you know, it looked fine. I mean, it's old, you wouldn't want to use it, but it wasn't bulged or anything. It has those ribs on it like that. I don't know who made that hose, but It was a good one. Yeah, they probably don't make it now. Whoever made that. Oh no, don't think that. But anyway, that's the deal. I'm gonna put that back in and roll with it. So just thought I would show you that. This thing is in there, and probably one of the reasons why they don't put the springs in them anymore is how aggravating it is to get them to go in there. The trick to it is you have to feed it in. If you got to flare it in up here, you probably got a larger end of the spring, which this one did. So I fed the narrow end in first through the larger end of it, and what you do is you twist it. Depending on what it's coiled, you twist it so that it tries to coil tighter, not unwrap it, because that doesn't work. So you twist this thing, just keep twisting it and push on it and twist it and push on it, and it'll work its way down in there. But what happened here was it got stuck. So what helps is take some soap, like some ordinary dish detergent, and lube it up in there, and then it'll work its way down in there. So it's all the way in now, so it should be good to go. So there you go. There's the lower air hose spring saga. Alright, then we're on to our next little project with this Fury, and I've got the front end up in the air on a jack and on a jack stand. I appreciate that several of you have mentioned that about a jack stand. You didn't see one and you remind me to always use one. I do always use one. There may have been one video that I didn't, but normally I always do. So it's there, and I appreciate your concern. Thank you for that. Absolutely correct. So looking around under here, the reason why that I'm doing this is because I heard when I was out driving, I heard a wheel bearing noise. You can kind of I've heard that different times before on different vehicles, and so I knew something was going on. So I went ahead and pulled the wheel off, and the wheel has not been off in a long time. Those lugs were rusty, but at least the wheel wasn't rusted to the rotor, thankfully. Well, it looked like it could have been, but it wasn't. But just looking around here at first, looks like we got some new brake pads on the front. That's good. I cleaned off that grease fitting. It's not been greased in quite a while. That's not good. But the suspension overall looks good. I don't see anything wrong up with the steering linkage. It's just not been lubricated in a while, but it seems pretty tight. The outer arm, I'm going to check that further under there. That's it right over right there. Going back under there, but we'll check that in the pitman arm. Those tend to be the two main culprits to wear out first, seems like. But one thing I did notice is the bushing here, the upper bushing on the shock is worn out and disintegrated, and the shock's kind of loose in the control arm, and it looks like the shock is actually riding on the control arm now, which it's not supposed to do that. So I'd already planned to order some shocks for it, so can't get shocks by themselves anymore around here for these. But anyway, back to this. Sure enough, we got something wrong here, because let this motorist go by. They're always going somewhere, but if you can see that or not, let me put you down on the knee there. Anyway, see how much that's moving? That ain't right. So ain't good there at all. So I'm gonna pull the caliper off and tie it up out of the way and see what the heck's going on in here. It turns okay, but it is definitely no bueno in there. Something ain't good there. So all right, let's dig into it, see what we find. Okay, figured this one out. So I popped the cap off, the grease cap, and the first thing I saw was that this thing, which is keeps the nut from turning once you get the nut tightened down properly and then put the cotter key in, it was out here kind of laying like this, and it's been bouncing around so much it's kind of worn this kind of rounded off looking there to make that real technical. So I thought, well, the nut is backed off probably, because that's what it looks like, because you can move the rotor in and out about half an inch. So okay, but the nut is out here, and I guess that's what's actually has happened, is the nut is backed off as far as it could until it contacted the, wipe some of the grease off this, contacted the whatchamacallit, cotter key. So looks to me like possibly the cotter key was not put in correctly, or something happened and it caused that thing to pop out of position. Somebody didn't put it back together, I guess, the right way. So I'll take this thing apart and see how the bearings look. Time for a parts run. I'm going to go ahead and put both inner and outer bearings on this side, the inner and outer bearing in the races. Just replace the whole thing. The bearings didn't seem bad, but you never know with that going on. So the deal is that evidently somebody, when they put this side back together, I don't know if they were on drugs or medication or drunk or what they did, but they screwed it up when they put it back together. Because you see this thing here, this is your little thing that goes over the nut, the wheel nut. Once you get it torqued, and then these teeth capture the cotter key and keeps everything from loosening up, which is what this did. It loosened up. Well, they didn't put it back together the right way, because I figured it would be good to check this side and see if we had the same thing happen over here. And this side looks okay. That's how it's supposed to be. You see how you can see in there, you can see how that's spread out around the spindle. So this side's okay. Doesn't seem like any problem, except that the tire is like really worn out on this thing. Look at the inside of this tire. That ain't good either. That means the front end of the camber's out on it. I wonder if this thing's having the problems with the K-member that they have. So anyway, they had to put this thing together the wrong way, because the simple fact is that it won't go over this like that. And this was the way it was sitting there, so some doofus didn't know what they were doing. Tried to work on the car and they didn't know what they were doing, so anyway, yep. Just looking at that K-member. So I don't know how to tell if the thing's out of whack or not on here. I wouldn't be surprised if it is. But it needs an alignment for sure, because this side was worn too. Not that bad though. Okay, well, we'll work through this. Back together. So 2 wheel bearings, 2 races, and 1 inner wheel seal later. This thing is back together, and also a new cotter pin. So anyway, this retainer, this safety retainer, which is what this is, I got in a little bit of a debate with the guy at the parts store. He wanted to tell me that this thing here, this sheet metal little retainer thing, doesn't much matter. No. Yeah, it does matter, because it locks into the wheel bearing bolt there, nut rather, and keeps it locked in position. That's the way this works. That's why you have a cotter key here. See, I don't know, for life of me, I don't know how in the world they got this thing out here, this thing, but they did. You saw what I saw, and teeth were bent down on it. And so I straightened it out, and it's not in that good a shape. I'm going to look for another one at the junkyard, and I'll replace that, because I think it'll work, but I don't like taking a chance on that sort of stuff. But anyway, I think we're good to go. I'm going to spray off this rotor and put the caliper back on, and I think I may do an oil change while I'm under here. I'm looking at the radar. We got some rain moving our way, So if I think I got enough time, I'll start on that. And I'm going to spray it off with my good old Berryman's B12 Chem tool. This stuff works great. Kenneth White, you were asking about this. This is what it is. You can get this as a spray. You can get it as a additive. You pour in oil or gas, or you can, I think you can still, I don't know if you can still buy it as a dip. You used to be able to buy that. They used to make carburetor dip out of it. I don't know if they still do that, but this stuff works great. It's a lot stronger than that stuff you get, the brake cleaner stuff. Now, I always buy those because I don't want any residue. Well, I was going to take the cap off. There we go. Bit more than the cap off. The whole thing off. What'd I do here? Alright, well, production snafu there. I knocked the nozzle off. Here, I'll spray some now. Why not? Why not? Bit of a goop there. Get all the way off, but and you know it's working because it kind of burns your skin a little bit too if it gets on it. So I have to do the back side too here in just a second. See, it dries up. You got to do that because you don't want any grease on your rotor, because that contaminates your brake pads and then your brakes don't work no more. You crash. So, alright then. So I'm gonna throw this thing back together. And not much left to do after this. I'm going to take it for a test drive and see how it does later. So this may or may not be the end of the mechanical parts of it. If it is, then thanks for watching all this. If not, I'll see you on another one. But I can't think of anything else left to do on this. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do, like I said, I'm going to do shocks. I'm going to do, I got to grease the front end. And I think before I condemn anything going on with this K-member, before I condemn that, I think I'm gonna check and see what the ride height is on it, because that affects your camber. If your torsion bars or your ride height is not right on these, it gives it too much negative camber. So, okay guys, thanks so much for watching. See ya.